Hello, I'm Miss Carmagno, and this is a short lecture on philosophers. I want to start by telling you what a philosopher is, so I'm going to go and share my screen. A philosopher is someone who thinks deeply on a wide variety of topics in order to gain wisdom and understanding. This is a person who has the free time, the wealth, or it might even be their job to investigate the world around them and make connections. There are a lot of philosophers even today. Although most often in school we study ancient philosophers and the philosophers of the Enlightenment, I don't want you to think that those are the only times that people sat around thinking big thoughts. And you can see from this list, we have philosophers who investigate things like the impact of technology, the human approach to gender and its impact on how our societies form. We have people studying things like the relationship between power and violence. We have people that are looking at interconnectedness of the whole globe and what our responsibilities are to each other and to the planet. We have people that talk about the experience of being part of and not part of various groups. We have people who just think about existence, and people who think about how we can be free, people who think about what's right and what's wrong and whether those things are the same across cultures, and people who just study the universe. But for our work this week, we're going to be talking about some specific philosophers from the Enlightenment. The Enlightenment philosophers were a group of people who mostly thought about what good government should look like. They lived after the scientific revolution, and so reason and individual value were really important to them. Our first philosopher in this category is John Locke. John Locke is an English philosopher. He lived during the Glorious Revolution, and so he actually experienced a change in power in England that wasn't violent, and he knew that was possible. He wrote a book called Two Treatises on Government, in which he argues that everybody is born with natural rights, the right to life, the right to liberty or freedom to do what you want, and the right to property. He believed people created governments to protect these rights, and he also believed that if your government stopped doing that job, you needed to get rid of that government and get a new one. Our next philosopher is Jean-Jacques Rousseau. He's born in Geneva, Switzerland, but he spends most of his career in France. He's convinced that people are basically really good, that they're smart and kind and they want to look after each other, and that if there are evil people in the world, they were corrupted by big societies, and that if they just got back to nature, they'd be okay. That those evil people sometimes corrupted others, but overall, humanity is a great place, full of great people. He wrote a book called The Social Contract, and in this book, he argued that people should have as much freedom as possible. They should be able to follow their own happiness. He also believed that people created societies to form a social contract. They gave up some of their power to the government, and in exchange, the government would protect them and help them be happy. But he also believed that when your government stopped doing that, you really needed to take your power back and give it to someone else. Lastly, we have Mary Wollstonecraft. Mary Wollstonecraft was also an English philosopher. She's a self-educated woman because, quite frankly, in her time period, there weren't a lot of opportunities for women to get an education. Mary Wollstonecraft was kind of a rebel. She didn't marry the man she loved. She had kids with him anyway. She wrote a book called The Vindication of the Rights of Women, where she argues that women are not respected by men and that society is keeping ladies down. She believed that women should have all the access to resources that men do, that they should have power, privilege, education, and they were capable of being equal to men in all of those areas. Now, you do have an extended assignment philosopher that you could investigate if you want to. He's going to be in your level 2 and 3 work, and his name is Francisco Javier Claviero. Claviero is a Mexican philosopher. He's highly educated Jesuit priest who lives in Mexico, and he specializes in Mexican history. He wrote a book called The History of Mexico, in which he argued that people in the Americas were just as good as people in Europe. That just because you were born in the New World didn't mean that you were somehow less smart or less capable or less creative than those people born back in Europe. His writings contributed to a more respectful view of the people in the Americas, and you might see similar ideas in the world that we live in today. All right, that's all the philosophers we're going to be talking about today. I hope you got everything into your notes. Have a good afternoon, and I'll see you next time.